Okay, today you're going to just do some review on multiplication of decimals, and I'm also at the same time going to go through fractions, and we're going to talk about some negative positive rules, but you're really going to continue to learn these things through our first several lessons on Amplify. So let's start with decimals. So at the very top here, there is a big reminder box telling you, like, if you have the same sign, your answer is going to be positive, meaning if you have a positive number times a positive number, you're going to get a positive answer. Or if you have a negative number times a negative number, you're still going to get a positive answer. And then on the flip side, if we have a negative number times a positive, we're going to get a negative answer. Or if you reverse that, a positive times a negative, you're still going to get a negative answer. So let's talk about some problems. So in the first problem, it's a decimal type of problem. So we are going to do 0.2 or 2/10, negative 2/10 times 1.6. When you are doing steps and things to remember, the first thing you need to remember when we're talking about decimals is we don't have to actually line the decimal up when we're multiplying. We are just going to actually line our numbers up. So you should be writing this little note in. And then you can actually write yourself a side note. Decimals don't need to be lined up. Now they might end up lined up, and that's okay. So in this first example, they actually are. I'm going to actually put my bigger number on top. So 1.6, and then I'm going to put my 2/10 on the bottom. And I'm also going to circle this negative sign. So I know at the very end I need to address that sign. So I'm going to do my decimal math. So 6 times 2 is 12. Carry my 1. 2 times 1 plus 1 is 3. Now, because I have a 0 in this next placeholder, I don't actually need to go to my second line. What I'm going to do is I'm going to place my decimal in my answer. So because I have two numbers behind the decimals, I'm going to go from right to left. So from right to left, I'm going to replace that decimal back 2 times. Now this isn't my final answer because I need to go back and I still need to address that negative sign. So because I have a negative number, 1 negative, 1 positive, the final answer here is going to be negative 32 hundredths. All right, so I want you to try the next, like pause your video and then try the next problem, and then I want you to come back to it and check through what I've done. So you should have done this on your own. You're checking your work. I'm going to put my larger number on top, then my smaller number. I'm going to circle that I have 2 negatives so I can make sure I follow my rule at the end. 7 times 1 is 7. 7 times 3 is 21. And now because I'm going to the second row and I have to multiply by 1, I'm going to put my placeholder 0 in. Just a little review. 1 times 1 is 1. 1 times 3 is 3. And I have to add up my 2 rows. So I get 7, 2, and 5. And then again, I need to address putting my decimal back in. So 2 numbers behind the decimal. So from right to left, I'm going 2 back in. So 5.27. Remember, I need to address, is it going to be a positive answer or negative? I have 2 negative numbers, so it's going to end up being a positive answer, 5.27. All right, moving on to a little bit of fraction review. So when I multiply fractions, they're actually pretty nice. The one thing that you probably need to remember about multiplying any fraction is that you can simplify from a numerator and a denominator first. So let's review that. Again, make sure you're writing all these things down. So if I go to 4/6 times 2/15, I know that I can pick one numerator and one denominator, and if they have a common factor, I can simplify the fraction. So I know that 4 and 6 both have a common 2. So this can be reduced to 2/3. But I cannot reduce any further because 2 and 15 and 2 and 3 don't have anything in common. So now I'm going to, another note to remember is with fractions, we multiply across. So I'm going to go across the numerators. 2 times 2 is 4. And I'm going to go across my denominators. 3 times 15 is 45. And the other thing I need to check for is, can I, and this is the one a lot forget about, can I simplify? And in this case, 4 and 45 do not have a common factor. So my final answer is going to be 4/45. And those were two positive fractions, just like you're pretty used to multiplying. So I get a positive 4/45. Again, pause your video, try the second problem, and then come back and see me work through it to check your answer. So the one thing I notice here is I do have a negative sign. So I'm going to address that at the very end, but I'm going to look for any simplifying first. I do know that 2 has a common factor of 2, which can make this 1. And then 2 goes into 20 10 times. And I can actually simplify again. 3 goes into 3 once, and 3 goes into 12 4 times. And if you notice, 4 and 10 also have, you could keep on simplifying, but let's say you don't. Let's say you multiply across and you got 4 here and 10 here. 4/10 has a common factor of 2, so this is part of that simplifying. So I could divide both by 2 and get 2/5. Now don't forget about that negative sign back at the front. I have 1 negative and 1 positive, so my entire bottom end answer needs to be -2/5. The last thing we're going to review kind of number-wise is mixed numbers. Now when we add and subtract, we have options to keep our mixed numbers mixed. But when we multiply, we have to, in our first step, make mixed numbers improper. This is like a must-do step. So let's go to the first example and make our mixed numbers improper. So in this one, we know we're going to take 2 and 2/3, and we're going to multiply the 2 times the 3 to get 6, and we're going to add 2 on. So 6 plus 2 is 8. Keep the denominator 3, and don't forget about that negative sign. Put our multiplication sign in. We're going to multiply 4 times 10 and get 40, plus 1 and get 41/10. And now we're going to go to the previous steps. We're going to look for simplifying first. So 41 and 3 don't have anything in common. 41 and 10 don't have anything in common. But 8 and 10 do. So 8 and 10 have a common factor of 2. So 8 divided by 2 is 4. 10 divided by 2 is 5. And that's about as far as we can go. So 41 times 4 gives me 164. And 3 times 5 gives me 15. Now I have to undo that answer, 164 divided by 15. So I come off to the side. I know 15 goes into 16 once with 1 left over. And then I have a remainder of 14. So my final answer is 1 and 14/15. And I forgot to circle this at the top. Of 1 negative, so we're going to bring that negative into our answer. Okay, one more time, go ahead and pause the video, try the second problem, and then come back and check your work. So in this problem, we only have 1 mixed number, and then we have 1 negative. So 4 times 1 plus 5 is 5/4 times 1/3. So we multiply, remember we're multiplying straight across to get 5/12. Now, why didn't I simplify first? Because there was nothing to simplify. And then don't forget about that negative sign. Since there's one of them, we keep it on our answer. So -5/12. All right, and the last one, we're just going to do this. This is an application problem, so a word problem. And we're obviously been multiplying. So we have Broomhilda lost an average of 4 2/3 pounds per month for 6 months. If she weighed 145 pounds to begin, how much does she weigh now? So we know that she is losing 4 2/3. So this is negative 4 2/3 over 6 months. So then we're going to work through that. 4 times 3 is 12, plus 2 is 14. So negative 14/3. And we're going to multiply that, and we're going to put that whole number, which we didn't see in the previous problems. We are going to put that whole number over 1 before we look at simplifying. 3 and 6 have a common factor of 3, so this changes to 1 and 2. And then I get a negative times a positive, so I get negative 28. And our final question does ask us, how much does she weigh now? So we have to consider if she weighs 145 and she's losing 28, we're going to subtract those two numbers, and we get 117 as our final answer. So a little extra step in that one. You are going to go ahead and you are going to do these 10 practice problems by yourself. And then tomorrow in class, you are going to check them. And then you also have a graded piece on this multiplying rational numbers check for understanding. You should do these problems on paper. And then in Canvas, there is a link to a Canvas quiz. That quiz can be done multiple times, so you can earn all the points, even if you get some wrong on the first try. Go back and redo those until you get a 4 out of 4.